Lee Abbott's my name. Okay. I've been racing pigeons since the middle of the 60s as a junior, so it's been a while. I started with basically long distance pigeons, so that if you have that sort of family, that's what you sort of concentrate on. So they've won Bathurst. I was first and second at Bathurst in '82. I've had a few seconds from Border Village. I've won Alice Springs, and I was second to Gavin a couple of years ago. And I only sent 3 that day, and I finished second, 8th and 34 after about 20 hours. Yeah, so that's for me.
The next topic was we put some slides together just to provoke some discussion. So one of the slides is about breeding and genetics, breeding for a marathon. Some of the guys, when I was talking to them, they talked about how their birds show confidence. So I might actually hand it over to Russell and Greg for that part of it. Greg, do you want to start that? Or Russell start with that? Yeah.
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, the other night we talked about different things that we look for in pigeons, and one thing that came up between both Greg and myself, and I'm sure the other guys know the same thing, is that a true long distance pigeon is one that thinks outside the square. You know, our pigeons are all creatures of habit, as we all are, but the true exception to that is the true long distance pigeon. They are full of confidence, they're full of ability, they're full of not being scared when the falcons attack the batch, they don't panic, and there's something that stands out in the loft. They'll either be your pet pigeon or they'll be one that hates you and you cannot catch it. They've got true character, and there's just something about them that stands out from the rest. For those who've never flown distance before, it's hard to find that particular bird in your loft that might be able to do it, but genetics, once you get it, the genetics are always there. I mentioned that my first one to fly Alice was in '79. Now, she, as a youngster, we had a race from Eucla. It was a tough race. Jack Bergen won it at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, dust storms all the way, and I didn't get her this hen till the following Thursday, but she flew Alice with her daughter the next year. We were able to fly youngsters as well. Now that pigeon, this isn't bullshit, but she flew her last race. She homed to 5 different lofts that I had over the years, but she flew her last race at 18 years old from Carrollton. That's 300 kilometres. She wasn't amongst the early ones, but she beat a hell of a lot of birds home. She's buried in the middle of my loft, and she died at 26. So true character, long lived, and my Madura Pass winner, my Alice Springs winner, my bird that I got from Bathurst that wasn't recognised, she is all in those genes. You do the pedigree and you go back and back and back, and you'll end up with her. So it's just that one bird that you find to start with, and those genetics will go all the way through.
Look, genetics is, I think, a huge part of long distance racing, well, all pigeon racing really, but particularly for marathon racing pigeons. I mean, if Johnny Les was here, I'm sure he'd tell us about Winx and Black Caviar, who were absolutely champion horses in their own right, but neither of them would have ever won the Melbourne Cup. Yet there was a Make a Big Eater who did it on multiple occasions. And it's those genetics, and it's exactly the same in pigeons. You know, if you won't get middle distance pigeons to win Alice Springs for you, not unless it's a real blow home. So, you know, if you want to fly successfully from places like over 1,300 kilometres, you certainly have to have the genetics in your breeding stock. And I think Lee Abbott can really highlight that for us perfectly.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I have a couple of hens that, one of the pictures are up there, but you'll see it later, that have passed it down generation after generation. And I can actually trace, so the 2 that are there now, one's an 07 hen that There's been a lot of distance pigeons. Their daughters have, and her granddaughters. I have one daughter that is a granddam of 20 association places. So it comes down generation after generation after generation. And the original pigeons I started with were in 1970. So that's how long that family has continued on. So if you have those genetics, you will find it, as Greg says, you can trace it back and it's there and it's there and it's there. It just keeps coming out all the time.
And similarly, my second from Alice this year, her mother was third in Alice and 22nd in Alice, but her mother was second in Alice. And it just goes on, and they pass down. And I certainly look at the power of mitochondrial DNA, and certainly I use a queen bee model of inbreeding and line breeding, and fibre hen line through that, because quite honestly, hens have been far more successful from Alice Springs than what cocks have. You know, there's an odd exceptional cock that gets placed from Alice Springs, but you know, 27 or 28 out of the top 30 are always hens. So I follow the mitochondrial DNA line.
Yeah, this year there was only 6 birds made it from Alice Springs. I was fortunate enough to finish 6th, and my partner Jeff Raymond finished 4th.